How are you, Ashley? I'm gonna hang on until about maybe 8, about 8:10, and we'll get started. Give people enough time to hop on. Montoya, I'm glad to have you. So do I expect a fabric cut from you tomorrow? Just asking. To be honest, I never was a fan of fabric, only because it intimidated me. I was super afraid of it. I felt like fabric was just a bit too much. I felt like it was just, fabric and me just didn't work. So I do want to let you know now I am at work. It's a really slow day. So that's the reason why I picked this time. So if I do have to get up and walk away, I'll come right back. But I have a really busy day tomorrow, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get in these tutorials in because I've got my cricket training class that I have to do. So figured I'd hop on with the fabric tutorial now to go ahead and get it out of the way. So what you're going to need for your fabric, of course, is a tumbler. We have these tumblers available at, this is a 15 ounce. I don't have many left, but this is a 15 ounce skinny that we do sell on our website at wifeymade.com. Of course, Mod Podge. This is the gloss Mod Podge. You can use the matte Mod Podge, but the one that I have is the gloss Mod Podge. I don't know. I think the matte is good for putting it on, but the gloss is good for putting the shine on the actual fabric before you get ready to epoxy it. You're gonna need an X-Acto or a blade, a really good blade. I prefer a new blade. These are the ones that chips off, so you're able to break it down and use a new blade. It's extremely important that you have a really sharp blade. That way you're not ripping the fabric or cutting the fabric the wrong way. And also some scissors. It's probably best to use some fabric shears, but these are brand new scissors. They're extra sharp, so they're gonna work for me. But if you have dull scissors, when you get ready to cut your fabric, you'll end up getting strings, or it'll cut kind of like, it'll cut like that. And that's not what you want. You want a clean cut whenever you're cutting. So that's the reason why it's always best to cut with either some new scissors or some fabric shears or some shears that's used just for your fabrics. That's probably your most important call when it comes to it. And of course, I use this brush. I use this brush only because I can use this brush over and over again. Once I use it tonight, I can just wrap it in some cellophane paper or wrap it in some of the clear paper and just leave it in there. You can always pull it out a couple of days down the road and it'll still be good for use. I know a lot of people say that it's not good to use this because it soaks up the Mod Podge, in which it does soak up the Mod Podge. But I mean, they're cheap, they're really inexpensive. You can use the brush, like the plastic brush if you want to, but I just find that I get a lot, my work comes out a lot better when I use this. Now, when it comes to prepping a cup for fabric, there's a billion ways you can do it. I don't scratch my cup. I don't sand the cup. I do wipe the cup down, but that's probably at max that I do. And that little piece that's on the bottom, I never take that piece out, especially when I'm doing fabric, because if you notice, if you do pull this piece off, it gives the bottom of your cup an indentation. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it gives the bottom of your cup an indentation, so it'll make the fabric sit into that, so that's what you don't want. So I typically always keep that little silver, that tab in the bottom. No matter where you buy your cups from, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna have that little tab. I know most people are just prone to popping them off, but I keep mine on there, so there's really nothing you have to do in order to prep your cup when it comes to doing the fabric. Whether you wanna wear gloves, that's an option, but I mean, Mod Podge is just like glue that you play with in school, or at least when I played with in school, how you put it on your hand and you just turn around and you peel it off. So that's the same way it washes off. So you can actually just rub your hands together and the Mod Podge will actually just fall off. I'm gonna give it maybe 2 to 3 more minutes, let people come in so we can get started. I'm gonna step away, go get me a cup of ice, And when I come back, then we can just go ahead and get started. So just a couple more minutes to just let people come in, and we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate everybody watching. And always, if you have any questions, please write out your questions now. Ask away. That's what we're here for. That's the whole purpose of doing this live tutorial, for you to ask questions if in the event you do have any questions. So we're gonna hop into it. So basically what you're gonna need, I use the cotton fabric. Cotton fabric always tend to work for me. You can use the polyester fabric, but sometimes the polyester fabric don't tend to stick on the cup. I don't know why it does it, but sometimes it don't tend to stick on the cup. Joanna, we're being good students tonight. Thank you, Sharon, for being good. If you can be good, I can be good too. Love the marble type cup from last night. That was our wifey's idea. That wasn't my idea. Still don't think I got it yet, but I'll keep watching. You can do it. Tips for the bottom of the cups. We'll get there. So essentially, you're gonna need a piece of fabric in order to cover the cup. So typically what I do is I just take the cup and I wrap the cup. And once I wrap the cup and I see that it meets a little bit, I always make sure that it overlaps just a little bit more. So the bottom of it is here. And I'm gonna just put it on the cup so you can see it. And I always let it overhang at least by an inch on this side whenever I'm cutting the fabric, because you always want to make sure that it overlaps just a little bit. And I'll tell you why you need it to overlap a little bit. And even on both sides of it, how it kind of hangs over the cup, you want it to do that also. Whenever you're cutting it, you never want it to cut it. You never want to cut it true to shape. When you're just cutting your fabric in order to lay your fabric on the cup, you always want to make the fabric just a bit bigger. It always works to me personally just a bit bigger, but this is just my way. But like I said, there's a million ways out there that you can try this in order to get it to work for you. And for the bottom piece, I just put the cup on the fabric. With this being I don't know what you would call it, multi-different shapes or multi-different photos or whatever the case it is, you can pick out your favorite photo that you want on the bottom. Where I'm not a marble person, so whether you want this image as a bottom, you just put your cup over it, take a pin and put a pin around it and just cut it out. That's the whole purpose in using some extra sharp shears, because if you don't use extra sharp shears and you try to cut it, it's just gonna rip the fabric, and if you rip the fabric, then the fabric isn't gonna be any good. My choice that I was going to use is I'm going to use the Marvel comic, that square. So pretty much what you do is you just put it over the Marvel comic. Once you put it over the Marvel comic, just take a pin around it and just cut the bottom out. Once you do that, then you just sit it to the side. For time's sake, I've went ahead and I cut my bottom out, and I have my bottom to the side. I think, and I'm going to go ahead and toss this to the side along with my bottom piece, because I've already got my fabric already cut out the way that I want it cut. And to get started, of course, some people don't like to dip their brush back into the Mod Podge, but with fabric, I don't think it really matters, because you're not getting any glitter or anything like that inside of the fabric, so it's not that serious. But some people like to pour some just in the top or pour some in a cup, but I just dip straight from my for my Mod Podge. Now, rather you use this Mod Podge and you're doing glitter at the same time, then of course you want to use some clean Mod Podge, because if you get glitter on the inside of your Mod Podge, and of course the glitter is going to be on the outside of the cup. Now, rather you want it like that or rather you don't want it like that, but that's a choice for you to choose. That's not up for me to choose. But this is a clean bottle Mod Podge that I have just for my fabrics. My hand is extremely big, so I like to put my hand in the cup, kind of like so, but some people like to use the, hey, Sonya, but some people like to, the football or the foam or whatever it is you use with the pipe and hang on to it that way, but I'm a hands-on type person, so I like to just, of course, be hands-on and do it like that. So when it comes to basing the Mod Podge on the cup, you want to get a good amount of Mod Podge on the cup. Mod Podge does dry quick, so of course when you're doing this, you know, you have to understand that you are up against the clock, and you always want to make sure you get full strokes on the cup, where you stroke it from, it's so bright in here, where you stroke it from the bottom all the way to the top, or from the top to the bottom. There's no rhythm to the madness when it comes to it. You just want to make sure that you get full coverage on the cup whenever you're doing it. You want not a good amount, but you do want a good bit on the cup, because you do want the Mod Podge to soak just a hair bit through the fabric of the cup, a hair bit through the fabric, in order to make sure that you get a good hold on to it. So this part, it may go fast for some people, but I'm working against the Mod Podge because of course it does dry quick, like I said, but I do want to get a good amount on it, and it's just going from the top to the bottom. Streaks on the bottom, I honestly don't think it matters, because it's going to be covered up, plus you're going to be pulling the fabric. So when it comes to streaks on the bottom, it doesn't matter, because you can actually push all that back out, or whatever it is that you don't need. So now that you have it like that, my marvel, now that you have it like that, I want to get it on the right way. So I just place it on the cup. Once I place it on the cup, I make sure that I have some sticking off the top and some sticking off the bottom. You can't see it from that way. And to make sure that I get it on the cup, I'm just using my hand to make sure I push out all the bubbles, make sure I'm spreading the Mod Podge beneath it. And as I'm doing that, I'm turning the cup at the same time. It felt like I felt a clump in it, in which I did feel it. So if you feel clumps in the bottom of your cup, understand that when you get ready to put your epoxy on the cup, you're gonna feel those same clumps. So if your Mod Podge is clumped up, or if the Mod Podge is dry, or whatever the case it is, sometimes it'll get those clumps, but we're just pressing and rolling at the same time to make sure it lay flat on it. I did have to iron this, I had to iron this fabric because it had those fold creases in it. So it's just rubbing the cup, making sure that I get it on there perfectly fine. And if you use your finger in order to rub it, you can feel any imperfections or any lumps, or if your fabric is folded on top of each other, you can feel all that. So that little extra piece that I was telling you about that's hanging over right here, I have a bit much this extra. I'm sorry, let me get it in the frame. I have a bit much this extra on there, but that's perfectly fine because we're gonna cut that down. But when you get to this point right here where it gets ready to overlap, what I do is I pull it back just a little bit, take my Mod Podge, and that little piece that I pull back, I put more Mod Podge there, but yet if you notice, I go over the fabric just a little bit. I put Mod Podge on top of the fabric that's underneath, if you see the way that it rolls, in order to get that little overhang to get on top of the bottom fabric. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then once you get it on there, just pull it over. Like such, and I'm still gonna have a little overhang, but I'm okay with just that little bit of overhang. But if you notice on the bottom here where it overlaps right here, where it's too much on there, I think my bell is about to go off. Like I told you, I'm at work. It's a slow night, but I picked this time so I can do this. But let me go take care of this guy right quick, and I'll be right back. And actually while I'm doing that, I'm actually just letting it dry. So I'm gonna just sit it down and I'll be right back. It was a food delivery, but it wasn't for me. Sucks. Alright, so once you have that down, I have a little bit much that's overfolded. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just cut this a little bit off. I'm not gonna cut, it's still overlapped, but just this little bit that's overhanging, I'm gonna cut that off so I can see what I'm doing. Like such. So now that we have it wrapped around it, there is a tool. I thought she was talking about the tool. There's a tool to cut this off, but I like my fabric to go all the way to the top. I don't like to cut mine. So now that we have it wrapped and you still have your little bit of overhang that's here, pretty much just take the Mod Podge at this point and just go over it a couple of times in order to, especially this, you kind of want to saturate your seam right here because you want to make sure that the epoxy soaked in, you have enough epoxy soaked into it so when you get ready to cut it or when you get ready to use your blade that it doesn't, the fabric doesn't come apart or fray or frazzle, I don't know what the word is, but it doesn't pull apart. You don't want the strings and stuff like that. You want a really clean cut. So now that we have it on the cup, like such, you got your overhang on the top and you have overhang on the bottom, which is perfectly fine. We'll just take Mod Podge. And a lot of people complain about how their Mod Podge end up having streaks in it. The reason why your Mod Podge have streaks in it is because you don't give it time enough to dry in between. You don't give it time enough to dry in between coats. I coat my fabric cups probably, I don't know, 5 times. I mean, you can just never be careful because if you don't coat your cup enough whenever you get ready to put epoxy on it, and epoxy gets to the fabric, then it's going to end up giving you water spots or wet spots in your fabric. And that doesn't look good. But it's just long, even strokes. Maybe you can see it a little bit better that way. It's just long, even strokes right on top of the fabric from top to the bottom. Kind of like how you did it on the base, but you're not using that much as of right now. And mind you, when your Mod Podge starts to dry, and you keep going over your Mod Podge with wet, and you keep going over your cup with wet Mod Podge, all it's gonna do is end up, it's gonna break the Mod Podge apart. When you put wet Mod Podge on top of dry Mod Podge, then you're just gonna have all kind of clumps and everything. See, you coat yours at least 8 times. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Coat it as many times as you feel like that you're comfortable with coating it with in order to make sure that you're good with your cup. Just to make sure that you get a good amount of Mod Podge on the cup. So with that being said, I've got my first coat of Mod Podge on it, and I want to make sure that I bring it all the way up to the top. And as this Mod Podge begin to dry, I don't want to go back over this Mod Podge again, because if I go back over, Mod Podge is trying to dry, and I go back over with another coat, then it's just going to start clumping the Mod Podge up. It's going to start giving me creases. It's going to start giving me those lines and stuff like that that you don't want. So now that we went over it one time, you can actually just let that sit how it is. You can sit it to the side and just let it dry. When they're really thin coats of Mod Podge, it doesn't take that long to dry. But as I let this dry, I have a whole lot down here on the bottom, or a whole lot of overhang on the bottom. I'm gonna cut some of that down just a little bit. I'm not gonna cut it all the way off because I'm gonna need a little bit of it. So I'm gonna cut just a hair bit of it down so I can see what I'm working with. So I've cut just a hair bit of it down on the bottom. On the top, I kind of like the amount that I have on the top, which is here. So I'm gonna just leave that how it is. I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm gonna keep it exactly how it is. But I guess I can go ahead and show you the top as the rest of it begin to dry from the bottom. When I get ready to do my top, what I do is I take my fabric from the outside and I push it on the inside of the cup, and I put just a bit of Mod Podge on the inside in order to let it dry. Give me just a sec, I'll be right back. everybody's getting food deliveries, man. I wish I was getting a food delivery. This is the 15-ounce skinny that I'm working with. So at the top, or in the top, what I do is I take just a bit of Mod Podge and I actually put it on the inside of the cup. I don't know if you can see it, but the Mod Podge is on the inside of the cup. And what I do is I just take I have to hold it down and do it. Take the overhang from the top and just press and fold it down on the inside of the cup. This is just my method. This method may not work for you, but this works for me. So just take it and just press it down on the inside. It's okay if you get Mod Podge on the inside of the cup. It's not gonna hurt. No kids party tonight? No. It's a quiet night tonight. Super quiet night. We got ACLs going on here. I don't know if anybody know about Austin, but Austin is a live music capital of the world. So we've got Austin City Limits out. They were here last week and they're here this week also. So the inside of the cup, the top of the cup, you can see that the fabric is folded over on the inside of the cup, and I'll show you how to cut that here in just a little bit, but I just wanted to get that out of my way for right now. On the bottom it's still access hangover and I want to keep it like that. I'm not ready to do anything with the bottom as of right now, not as of right now, but we can go ahead and put our no, I don't even want to put the base on right now until I get it cut. Then once I get it cut, then I'll be okay with taking the base of it off. I didn't measure this cup in order to make sure that it lined up perfectly fine, because to me it didn't matter, because this was just a trial cup. And especially with a cup like this, you're not going to get it on there extremely perfect or exactly how you want it. So you can always put the label or put whatever it is you want to put onto it, which is perfectly fine. Will it mess up when you put your drink in it? No, the cup isn't done yet. It's not going to mess up. We're actually going to cut that lip off that's on the inside of it, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But this actually has to get Mod Podge, not Mod Podge, this has to get epoxy on the top of it. So it's good. If you touch the cup and the cup is tacky, that means that the cup is still wet. And if the cup is still wet, you don't want to put Mod Podge on top of it. But you can actually look at the fabric and see if it's still white or if it's back to its natural color. Typically Mod Podge, when you put it on, is white, but when it dries clear. So you can see if it's clear enough to keep it moving, or if it look like it's still wet. And up top right here, I don't know if you can tell, it look like it's still wet, so I'm not going to put any extra Mod Podge on it. This is where a lot of people go wrong when they're Mod Podging the cup, is they think, or the cup look like it's dry, so you just go in with a second coat of Mod Podge and you get those streaks and you get those lines, and you get that wet Mod Podge look, and that wet Mod Podge look is not going to come out. The wet Mod Podge look doesn't come out. So it's just a game of just waiting to let it dry. If you have a hair dryer, I wouldn't suggest using the heat gun, because to me, when I use the heat gun, it makes it dry uneven. But if you got a hair dryer to just hair dry it, that would be fine. I wish I would have brought one in here, but of course I didn't. So it's just got to air dry, and as it's air drying, I'm gonna just sit it upside down. I guess if you have any questions about fabric, I guess now is the best time to ask them while this is drying, because we got a couple of more. I'm going to probably do about 2 more coats of Mod Podge on the cup before I show you how to cut it. And even then, I actually need to go get some tape, because I forgot to bring my tape in. We're going to need some tape, and I'll show you what you need that tape for. I forgot to put that on there as part of what you need, but let me go grab it real quick and I'll be right back. I tend to like to use electric tape when I'm doing mine, but of course I didn't bring any electric tape with me because I overslept before it was time for me to come to work. So I forgot my tape. Looking at the cup, I'm comfortable with it. It looks dry enough for me to go ahead and keep it moving. It's not tacky or anything like that. If you're touching the cup and the cup feels the least bit tacky, you don't want to go on with it. Just sit the cup down and just let it go. I'm glad to have you, Chastity. For you guys who don't know who Chastity is the water slide queen, by the way. So if you're having any issues with water slides or whatever the case it is, she do have a group that will be able to assist you when it comes to water slides. She do the full page water slides, like the full cup water slides. So are these wiser to make than the glitter cups? To be honest, glitter's probably a little bit easier, a lot bit easier actually than these cups are. But once you get the hang of it, then these cups will probably be your go-to cups. That's just me personally. So on your outside coats, I am not putting a whole lot of Mod Podge on the cup because I don't want it to dry up and clump up, but I am putting a good bit on, or a good layer on. Hey, Miss Lumpkins. I am putting a decent amount on, but not a really, really thick coat. These are just multiple thin coats is all I'm putting on it. It's just wrapping like fabric. Yeah, but yours is more susceptible to tear than mine is. And if you tear a water slide and you have to start back over, with these, it's not like that. It's a lot simpler to me. But hey, you're the water slide queen. You know better than I do. When you're doing it, the epoxy or the Mod Podge on the top, always make sure that, hey love, always make sure that it's not super thick and you don't see the lines already. If you see the lines already, that means you're using way too much Mod Podge. I need help with water slides. The first time was messed up and I gave up. I'm gonna do a water slide tutorial. Probably won't be tomorrow, but I'm off on Monday, so I may do one on Monday. So that's my second go round. Of course, with the second go round, it is white. Of course, because Mod Podge dries white, or Mod Podge goes on white, but it dries clear. So with that being said, I'm just gonna go ahead and sit it back down and just let it dry because I don't want to get all my fingerprints and stuff like that all over it. But I'm extremely proud of the way that it's coming out. It's coming out really good. I keep telling you I'll do one on your group, and I promise you I will. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow sounds great to me. And I'll come to yours and I'll do one. I know I keep saying it, but I know we both have busy lives, Miss Hawkins, and I am not upset. I completely get it, but whenever you can get around to coming on and showing my group how to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Not for me, I can't get one on right, so I gave up on that. Well, when it comes to water slides, I think when I first started water slides, I had a hard time trying to get my water slide to stay. But after that, I don't know, it was super easy after that. There's a couple of ways that you can actually do it. Hopefully she'll show you the trick way on how to do it versus actually peeling it away. You can just put it on there. You can slide the paper down. If you reverse it on the clear, I think that's the only one that it works on, if I'm not mistaken. But she knows a lot better than that. But when it comes to fabric, I guess if anybody have any questions on that while this dries, I guess we can go ahead and go forth for that, because this is a process, a hurry up and wait process is what it is. A hurry up and wait on absolutely nothing. Well, we're waiting on the Mod Podge to dry is what we're doing. But I guess in the midst of waiting on the Mod Podge to dry, I'm going to just go ahead and cover my Mod Podge back up. I typically have a piece of paper that I can put that in, but it's not going to dry, or as much Mod Podge is in that brush, it's not going to dry. So it's good to go. She'll get it posted. I don't think she can post the link on this, but she'll post it on the group. For anybody who wants to do the water slides. I'm decent at water slides, but my wife is a water slide person. I'm not a water slide person. I like to do vinyl on cup. I like to do HTV on cups. So that's just me. Do you Mod Podge for the base coat? Yes. If you go back to the beginning of the video, we did Mod Podge the base of the cup before we actually put the fabric on the cup, in order to hold the fabric onto the cup. It's not that you just put the fabric on the cup and then just turn around and put Mod Podge on it. You have to base the cup in Mod Podge first. Once you base it with Mod Podge, then you turn around and you just hold the cup and wrap the fabric around it, kind of what I just showed a second ago. So where does the tape go? I know you have any for this. I'll show you where the tape goes in just a second. You should do one live with the wife. That would be pretty freaking cool. That would be awesome. I'll show you where the tape goes. I haven't used the tape yet. We're still just hurry up and waiting on this. So no tape has been used as of right now. The bottom still is yet to be done. I don't do the bottom until I cut the excess off, because the extra that we had on here that I was telling you about that's laid over, we're gonna have to cut that off, but I want to make sure that I get the Mod Podge on here first before I do any cutting. I want to make sure that it's saturated and I don't get the strings and stuff like that. And when you're done, you'll use the epoxy to seal. I let mine sit. After about 5 or 6 go rounds, I'll pick it up like tomorrow. I'll go back out tomorrow and probably put another coat or 2 on it, because I do 5 coats now. Come back the next day and probably put a couple of more coats onto it, just a few coats, not a lot, and just let it sit for a couple of hours. Then after it sits for a couple of hours, then I'll go back and put it on the turner with the epoxy. You can't put a logo directly onto the fabric. You have to coat it in epoxy first. If you try to put a logo onto the fabric while the fabric is still just fabric, once you put your transfer tape on there, the transfer tape is going to end up pulling the Mod Podge off, so it's not going to stay. So that's just word to the wise. Honey, you can do it. I got faith in you, man. You and your methods, the way that you do stuff, I'd be like, how did she do that? Now, why did she do that? Now, why does she want to do that? Looking at the cup, you can still tell that it's kind of white, where the Mod Podge hasn't dried. So we'll just give it more time to dry, and because I'm using the gloss, the gloss is kind of a tell-all more so than a matte, because with you using the gloss gives it a shimmer. And if you put Mod Podge, or while the cup has that kind of shimmer to it because it's got that gloss effect to it, and you go back and put more Mod Podge onto it before it dries up, that gloss is going to tell off on you, FYI. It always does. The zipper on a tumbler, especially if you're using fabric, is the best way to cheat fabric in the whole wide world, because you never have to worry about the seam. I wish I would have brought an actual zipper, but I think that's far advanced for the people who's just trying to learn how to do fabric. But the zipper is a cheat. It is a big cheat when it comes to doing the fabric cups. And I guess I'll put that one on my list somewhere down the road too, to do a zipper fabric cup. It's a lot to me. If you're wanting to get into fabric, it's probably best to do the zipper on the cup, but of course you have to know how to do the zipper on the cup in order to put the zipper on the cup. But it's a cheat. It's a good way to cheat, because you don't have to worry about the seam. One second. It's getting there, but it's not quite there. I am at work, and today is an extremely slow day. I've got one more person that I'm waiting to come in. I mean, pretty much the people that's coming in are the people that's coming to the wrong hotel. There's another hotel that's just behind us, and we share the same address. So we get a lot of those people. But this hotel is super quiet. Super quiet. We're good with you sharing your links, Chastity. Well, there you go. Oh, she is able to put it up. There it is. I've still got a few white spots on it. That's what I'm pretty much just waiting on. I don't know if you can see it because the lighting here is so bright. It's not bad, but one side of it is clear from where I started, and the other side over here, it's still got just a few white streaks in it. So I just want to give that time to dry. I don't know why my phone is not reading my messages. Dying. How you doing? I think that was our second go round. So once this dry, or while it's drying, we can go ahead and cut our line. And I'm gonna take my messages away so I can actually see what I'm doing, so I can make sure that y'all see what I'm doing. Now, beneath this is a line. That line that's beneath this fabric is where the under fabric stops. You can actually see that line. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you can see that line from where the bottom fabric is actually on the cup, and you've got your top that's overlaying. So this is where the tape come in at. You want to get a piece of tape that goes from the top to the bottom, and where that line is, you want to put the tape on the line so you can see it, so you'll know where you need to cut at. Make sure that you don't put it over it, because if you put it over it and you end up cutting the cut, or you cut the fabric, then you're gonna have your cup showing because you cut the actual fabric itself. I like to use the black tape personally, because the black tape, the electric tape, actually sticks a little bit better to Mod Podge than this one does. So now that I have my tape on there, I know you can't see the tape, but I can see the tape, and this tape is pretty much telling me where I need to cut along in order to cut that overlaying top off. And this is the reason why it's so important to have a sharp blade. If you don't have a sharp blade, you only get one chance at this. And if you don't have a sharp blade and you try to go back over it again and again and again, then all you're gonna be doing is end up butchering your cut. And you don't wanna butcher the cut. Take your time when it comes to it. You've only got one try when it comes to it. One. You don't want to keep, doing multiple lines and multiple lines and multiple lines. You only want one line going from the top of the cup all the way down to the bottom of the cup. Trying to see which way is best for me. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. And then just go from the bottom all the way to the top in one stroke, but putting enough pressure on the cup where it's cutting through both pieces of fabric. And hopefully I can make just one smooth pass on it. And you have to make sure that you cut on the inside too, from what I tucked in. And then once I have it on there, then I'll just pull the tape off. I don't know if you can tell where my cut line is, but I'll lay it down and pull that top piece of fabric off. It does pull away from the cup a little bit, but it's perfectly fine that it do pull away from the cup. But I take that top piece off. And if you have any beneath it, then you want to take that bottom piece off too, but I don't have any beneath it, so I have no need. So what you're going to do at this point is where it meets right here is you want to make sure that you re-go or you go back over that and make sure that you hit that a few times. And at this point, we're going to go back over the cup again with Mod Podge, just re-Mod Podging the whole cup. And once we re-Mod Podge the whole cup, then I'll show you how to cut the top, and then we'll go ahead and proceed to go ahead and cut the bottom. So this is just another full coat of Mod Podge all over the cup again. And when you cut it, if your fabric came up just a little bit, it's perfectly fine. Just make sure you put Mod Podge beneath it again and just put it back on and you're good to go. At this point is when it's important to make sure that you're not leaving streaks in the cup, because if you leave streaks in the cup, of course it's just going to stay in the cup. Streaks for Mod Podge means that the Mod Podge is just overlapping, so you've got the Mod Podge is a little thicker where the line is, so you want to make sure that you have you want to smooth it out. Of course, give me just a second. You always have time to fix the streaks before the Mod Podge is dry. But never put a lot of Mod Podge on your brush because you don't want it to streak. You want it to be smooth. You want to get it on there as best as you can. Make sure you're getting it from the top to the bottom, like such. And now that we've got it, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll start on the top. Let's see if I can pull you in a bit closer so I can show you how I cut my top. Let me clean up my mess real quick. Let me toss this. So here again is the reason why it's super important to have a really sharp blade at this point. So what we're going to be doing on the top of the cup is I'm going to be cutting at an angle. Just pretty much scraping it off is what I'm attempting to do. Hopefully you can see it. And my blade is laid flush up against the cup. And that's the inside, that was what was on the inside. And then I can always go back and just clean it up with my blade. For the frayed pieces that's there is what I'm cutting off. So it gives me a fresh, even, clean look, like such. So my fabric goes all the way to the top of the cup, like I wanted it to, but it's not on the inside of the cup. Of course, you're gonna have that residue that's on the inside, but that's fine. We can get that off. And while it's still drying, I take just a little bit of Mod Podge, not a lot, just a hair bit of Mod Podge just at the tip, and go around the top with just a little bit, and then I'll take my fingers and pinch it again, and pinch it on the inside of the cup to make sure that make sure that the fabric doesn't pull away from the cup, because if it pulls away at this point and you get ready to put epoxy on the inside of it, I've got 10% left on my battery, so I'm gonna have to rush this. I don't have a charge in here. And I'm just rubbing it on the inside, because at this point when we cut it and we pull it, and if it pulls away, the fabric pulls away from the cup, then the epoxy is going to get down on the inside of it, and of course it's going to give you those wet spots again. And that's just to push it down on the inside so it gives us a secure top. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the bottom now, because I had it sitting on it. Of course it folded up a little bit. So this is where it's important at the bottom. I'm going to cut it not close to the top, not on it, but I'm going to leave just a little bit to overhang. Just a little to overhang, not a lot. I'm going to move this towel and put it straight down on the table. Extremely important to make sure that you have some really good scissors doing this part, because you don't want to rip the fabric. Because the way that I do my bottom is I leave just a hair bit, this little piece that we're leaving out, I leave that to overlap the bottom. So what we're doing now, I hope you can still see it. I know it's really bright in here. So what I'm doing now is just taking my bottom piece that I've already pre-cut, that I showed you how to do it in the beginning, and putting Mod Podge on the base of the cup, on the base bottom of the cup, making sure that I get on the inside of the fabric that's going to be hanging over. Make sure you get it in there really good. And lay it on there, and make sure that the bottom of it gets beneath the overlay. Give me a sec. I typically use my X-Acto, but I don't have an X-Acto, so I'm going to be using a paper clip just to make sure that it gets pushed beneath. It should have enough Mod Podge beneath it, but I feel like I missed the spot. And I tuck mine beneath it. See, I have that little bit of overhang. That little bit of overhang is what I'm gonna push over the top of the cup, or push over the base once I get the bottom of it in the way that I want it to sit, and make sure that it's not overlapping the top. You wanna make sure that that bottom piece actually fits the cup. You don't want it overhanging. You wanna make sure that it fits the cup. So now that we have it in there and it's fitting, what we're gonna do is just take a little bit of Mod Podge and just go just on the edges for right now. Just the edges. And it's gonna work just the way that I did the top. Clean off my hands a little bit. It works just the way that I did the top, where I'm just pushing it over. I may have to take my knife and cut a few slits into it, but it looked like it's actually gonna sit right for me today. Typically I have to take my X-Acto and cut a few slits into it. And I'm just pushing the little excess that I had over the top or over the bottom of the cup. A lot of people do this a lot of different ways. This is just what works for me. And you need to find what works for you in order to get what works for you to work. So it looks like that, where the top is pushed over. You can cut it a little bit smaller. I didn't cut mine smaller for time's sake because I know my battery's about to die and I wanted to make sure that I showed you how to do it. So we don't have any Mod Podge on the top of it. So because we don't have any Mod Podge on the top, I'm not using a lot on the bottom. I'm sorry, I'm not using a lot, but I'm brushing in the direction that we pinched over the bottom, because if you just brush it across it, this part's gonna come off from the way that we pinched it. And now that we have our base on there, we've got our base on, we've cut the top, so you see what it looks like to cut the top. We've cut our seam and put our seam together, and we've got enough Mod Podge on the cup. But of course, at this point, you want to go back over this a few times. Maybe for me, I'll probably go back over it about 4 or 5 times in order to make sure that I get it on there right. I've got the top already cut, but I'm still going to go back over the top a couple of times with Mod Podge to make sure that I get it in there soaked really good. I don't wash the cup. I don't do anything until I actually get the Mod Podge on the cup. Once the Mod Podge is on the cup, at least for my base layer, then you can go back and you can wash the cup. But I don't do any washing as far as trying to get the inside of it clean now, because it doesn't make any sense to try to get it clean now, because we're going to be because you still have to put the epoxy on the cup. So it makes no sense to try to clean it now. Plus, if you put any water on the cup at this point, it's just gonna pull the Mod Podge away from the cup. But that's the basics on how you do a fabric cup, including the full base on the bottom and having your fabric go all the way to the top. That's pretty much the basis on how you do it. And like I always say, if you have any questions, comments, concerns at this point, you can always reach out to any of the admins that's in the group. I'll re-tag them, or I tag them on your welcome post. You can always reach out to them, and they'd be more than elated to help you with as much as they can. If they don't know, of course, they'll reach out to me, and if they can't reach out to me, I'm sure somebody in the group will be more than elated to assist you with whatever it is that you need. But beyond this, if you have any questions as far as what I did, I probably have about 3% left on my battery. But if you have any more questions beyond this, as far as anything that you need, hopefully that was simple enough in order to do a fabric cup. But this isn't just the end of it. Like I said, a couple more coats of Mod Podge. After you do a few more coats of Mod Podge, then you want to epoxy it at that point.
What's to eat around here close?